Hello, Graham Vincent, violin maker and musician. Right, back in the workshop, yes, and I have been working on a Baroque violin, a copy of my favourite English violin that I own. So it's basically, the concept behind this one is that it's a copy of that one, and it's how this one would have looked, you know, a year or two after it was made, basically. So it's the body is pretty much the same, but the neck, don't know how well that's going to show up in this shot, basically is as it would have been originally, which is a Baroque style neck. So we've got a few differences, the Baroque neck being the principal one, really. And it's very strange. This is the first proper Baroque violin I've played at any length. And that massive neck, because it tapers down to a nice little end there, is actually incredibly comfortable. Almost to the point where going back to the classical one feels a little bit odd now, I have to say. So it's rather strange. Anyway, it's got quite a high arching front and back. The back is a piece of English poplar, as are the sides. That's my dog barking outside for some reason or other. This one, not entirely sure what wood the back is. Possibly English sycamore. It's really difficult to say, to be honest. I'm just going to have to pause that a second whilst I say hello to the dog. Right, the dog has been duly greeted. Whether or not it will come back and bark more, we'll see. What was I saying? Yeah, the front of this old one is quite a sort of a resinous pine. Kind of very common amongst English violins, early English violins. And it's probably from the Black Forest kind of region. And most of the early violins made north of there, so German, Dutch, whatever, tend to be this material. And it's only in about 1740, apparently, that the sort of the spruce that would have been commonly used in Cremona actually hits England. Anyway, so that's beside the point. What I've used on the front of this one is some reclaimed pine, we'll call it, but it's a spruce by the look of it, from an old door. So a very old piece of timber. Yeah, so let me play them. I might try and do some clever stuff with the editing, we'll see. Probably not. That's this one was only strung up yesterday. It's only had maybe an hour's playing on it. This one was strung up in 1705, so it's had 320 years of playing on it. Violins do improve somewhat with playing. So I would expect over the next few days and then the weeks and months for this to open up a bit. So it'll have a sort of a more expansive kind of sound. But even so, already, although that you can tell them apart quite clearly, but there's a core part of the sound which is the same. And that's, I think, because of the arching, because of these quite deep ribs, they're 32mm. They're both incredibly easy to play. I mean, I've always known that old one was, but I was absolutely delighted with the, this just wants to be played. It's lovely. I used one of my sort of handmade varnishes on it, so it's just boiled rosin and linseed oil. So basically the oil, the rosin is boiled and boiled for about 12 hours until it goes from this nice clear amber liquid down to this thick black tarry sort of layer, and then you add a little bit of oil to bind it to get rid of that brittleness that you get just with cooked rosin, and then you boil it some more so that all the bit more chemical reaction takes place, and then as it's cooling you thin it down with a little bit of terps, and you end up with this simple, initially quite soft varnish, which I mean obviously cures pretty soon, but then takes a few years to actually finally settle down. And that's why you get the sort of the wear on the neck and places of wear on old violins, because they do say that they that wear probably happened in the first few years on those old Italian violins. And if you want that natural look, that's the best way to do it. Use the same varnish. So this was that old English one was made using an external mould, and you can tell that because the joint on the corners is in the centre of the two ribs, because they come round and like that. Whereas if you're making a violin using an internal mould, then you put the ribs in the C-bout first of all, and then you then finish the curve into that, and then you overlay the top and the bottom ribs, and then those are sort of shaped so that you end up with the corners coming up and the joint hidden on the very corner, so you get a joint with no visible seams. Not that they're that visible in these, but it's a bit of a giveaway if you look closely to see whether an old violin has been made using an internal mould or an external mould. External mould could possibly be really old. It could possibly be from the sort of the Brescian sort of region. But generally Italian violins are made with internal moulds. The sort of Bavarians, Germans, Dutch, the English, and definitely the French used to make violins with external molds generally. Some of the more expensive French violins were made using the Italian method, but the large part of their production was tended to be cheaper violins, and they were generally made using external molds. Anyway, internal, external, enough of the waffle. What else is there to say, basically? Yeah. So the next violin I'm going to be making is completely different from this. I've actually started it. Bear with me a second. Yeah, I'm in the process of making two Spanish cedar violins. And then after that, I'm back to making copies of this old English violin, and I'm making something really exciting, which is a bog oak violin with sympathetic strings. So that should be interesting. I will, of course, keep you updated as we go on that one. I'm kind of wittering on. I feel myself just going off, so I will stop now before I bore you all too much. Wish you well and hope to see you soon. Look after yourselves. Cheers, folks. Bye.